Welcome back to the Zedoralivepod podcast. Who am I with?
Jaden, if you didn't know already.
What are we talking about today?
Jobs, Gen Z, and the world of work, I suppose, in general.
Yeah.
A good place to start is, obviously, we've spoken about how we're both very similar and we both do graphic design. But is that how you started? What was your first foray into the job market?
Oh, what was my first job? I think my first ever job was working in Morrison's.
Nice.
Work experience, stacking shelves.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty bog standard. Yeah, it's extremely boring. I can't lie. But it's just like the basic, make sure all the shelves are, prim and proper, getting stuff out the back, bringing it in. I think the part that used to annoy me the most is like, I used to be the guy that would put stuff back in random places.
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't want this bag of crisps. I'm going to put it by the washing up liquid. But
Just
then when you
wherever
actually
you're
do it and you're the one who has to put it back, it's infuriating.
Yeah.
Like, why is there a boiled egg next to, the spoons and you've got to go and put it back in the right place?
Do places sell boiled eggs?
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
the egg already boiled?
People used to make fresh stuff and put it just in random places. And then ever since I did that work experience, I'm like, never again I'm going to do that. I put it back in the right place.
Oh, you always do that
Always
now?
do it now, yeah.
I suppose that's a lesson, the jobs you've had in the past or your attitudes now will tell you what jobs you've had in the past. I worked at a pub and I'll usually... That was your first
job?
That was an early job. My first job was during the holidays at the local tennis club, doing kids parties, being one of the people who would show the kids where to go or something.
Oh, right, yeah.
But my main job was probably working at a pub when I was 17, 18. But now I will take glasses to the bar rather than just leave them on the table because I know how annoying, especially when you're sitting outside, I know how annoying it is to be staff walking outside, collecting a bunch of glasses, bringing them back in, especially everyone's on Guinness at the minute. So everyone runs out of Guinness glasses.
Right.
And that can be really frustrating because you've got someone at the bar who's like, can I have it in a Guinness glass? No, there's none left. It's the whole thing. Anyway. I actually forgot to mention this at the start. We've got a silver medalist in the building right now in recent jiu-jitsu competition. Jaden, do you want to tell the people how it went, what it was?
You're bigging it up more than it was. It's just a local comp. Graphic Industries came second. But
Come on, silver medal, let's go. Silver medal. Silver medalist. You even got the Harry Potter scar and everything to show for it.
But yeah, it was good. We'll have a jiu-jitsu episode soon.
Yeah.
Got something coming on.
Once I actually get back into it as well.
Get into that,
Yeah, gi or no gi?
No gi. Yeah, 4 or 5 matches. It's pretty solid.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, if nothing else, don't mess with the Zedoralivepod. Cool. All right, back to jobs.
What was your least favorite then? Your least favorite job you've ever had? Was it your first one or was it something else?
I don't know. I think every job's got its merits and things that you don't particularly like about it. I loved working at the pub, but I also hated it sometimes. If you're in the summer, if it's late, if the outside is open, dealing with drunk people can have its own challenges. But then also the people that I worked with, I really, really got on with. So I think there's pros and cons. I wouldn't be able to necessarily choose which job has been my categorically my worst one. I think I tried to see the good sides of everything in a way. What about you? It looks like you know for a fact what your worst job is.
I'm not going to say the name, but yeah, when I came out of uni, I was looking for a place. One of my networked kind of graphic design peers found me this job at a company, and it was a startup kind of fashion brand. So they wanted to be the next ASOS, if you will.
Right.
And it was only women's clothing. And their kind of idea was they're going to get loads of influencers to do collaborations and make collections. And that's how they're going to grow the brand really quickly. And so I was the graphic designer for basically the whole thing. The guy who got me the job was also working there as well, but he wasn't really on the tools. He was doing more direction and stuff. So I was doing the packaging, all of the brand stuff, all of the kind of assets for the influencer campaigns and all of that. And it was quite big. There was some very famous people from Love Island who did the first collection.
Okay, cool.
But the whole setup of the business was just abysmal. It was really bad.
Oh, really?
So when you think of a job like that, you imagine it being really glamorous, the big ASOS office with all the people and they've all got their own MacBooks. This was literally a room in a warehouse, right. And we were all just working there.
Humble beginnings.
Literally, just
Right.
all I had was the computer on the screen.
Yeah.
Like, this computer screen on the table, and that was it. It was like an empty room.
Is it still going?
No, they're
No.
defunct now.
Right.
Like, that's a whole different story. But
Okay.
yeah, it was a really rough job, and like there was drama between like the co-founders, and like I even had the people from Love Island come in, and they were like talking about the collection and like going through it and stuff, and they were literally behind me whilst I'm working on the like campaign stuff, like watching me.
Wow.
So yeah, it was
Intense.
it was a very intense job, and it was for absolutely like beans, like no pay at all.
Right.
But definitely a learning experience for sure.
I was going to say something like that where it's so small and it's a company essentially trying to kick off. You probably learn. I mean, you said like the business was almost destined to fail from the start. So you probably picked up a few things about business in general, which you wouldn't necessarily pick up if you were already at an ASOS because you're so far removed from that.
And it kind of helped me with my kind of like spider sense as well when it comes to jobs, because now I know, okay, these are the signs you need to look out for when you're trying to get a job. Because on the face of it, it sounds very glamorous. Like, we're going to be the next ASOS. You're coming in on the ground floor, you know, all the spiel they usually give you to like allure you into the job. And obviously I had the connection who was like vetted, and, you know, I trusted him, but yeah, you can never really predict like, what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's fair. So it's clear what made you quit, or was it defunct beforehand?
I think there were some issues with pay, which like actually started off like the whole process of me wanting to leave. Like, I could manage the work and it was like, okay. But then when they stopped starting to pay, that's like a really big sign that like, okay, the company's like probably going under.
Yeah.
And then I found another job very quickly, and I was like, look, I gotta go. Cause like, you know, I think I was supposed to have like a salary review, because like the salary at the beginning was really low, like near minimum wage. And then it was supposed to go up like quite quickly after, because obviously they're developing very quickly. But then once he was like, yeah, I can't lie, we can't afford to like pay you anymore, I was like, yeah, I'm out. Like,
yeah.
see ya.
Yeah, that's so fair.
Yeah. So that was kind of the nail in the coffin, I think.
So obviously not being paid or not being paid on time is a big red flag. What are some other red flags? You said that you picked up a few there. What are some other red flags like, you might look out for?
If the management is like arguing with each other like in front of people, like that's a huge red flag. Like if they're like, obviously like things can get heated, and like if you're having discussions, especially in a startup where it's like very slapdash and like everybody's just bootstrapped and like trying to make things work. Yep. But like when we see as employees like the co-founders having like a shouting match, I'm like, okay, this isn't like
not good.
You know, and then like all the other things about like you know, the HR kind of side of things, like not having a handbook and not really having an onboarding process, which is like, you know, typical of like a startup. But you know, if you don't have those things in place, it's probably indicative of like larger problems in the organization, if that makes sense, even if they are very small. Yeah. So yeah, those were kind of two big red flags. And then obviously when I got to the office, I'm thinking like, okay, it's probably going to be like pretty nice office, like swanky. And then I got there and it's literally like a concrete room with a bunch of boxes of clothes. I was like, oh yeah, okay, I think this is going to be pretty short-lived.
That's mad that they got people from Love Island on it though.
Yeah, no, it was really big. They had a big campaign video that I edited, got like hundreds of thousands of views.
Right.
But those people were like really like divas, like, you know.
Oh really?
It was a pair of sisters from one of the earlier Love Island seasons, if you might know them, listeners.
Okay.
But yeah, very interesting dynamic between them, especially because like obviously the company is like betting on them to do really well, like that this campaign has to pop for us to like go to the next level, and it kind of didn't have the same impact they anticipated.
Fell flat.
Yeah.
You see a lot of startup brands, especially the fashion ones, they, as soon as Love Island like kicks off and you can see who's the personable people, they're straight onto them straight away. Like they come out of the villa and everyone's like, Love Island starts again. So is it June or July? I don't know.
I haven't watched it in ages.
I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. Anyway, so back to jobs and Gen Z in general. There's this whole perception that Gen Z don't want to work as hard and that Gen Z is job hopping in general. Do you have any thoughts about that straight off the bat?
I think it's probably not an issue of like not wanting to work hard. I think we're just a bit more clear on like what we want to do and our passions and how that aligns with like our work and our life and that balance. And when you like really clear on your value, then you tend to like not stand for things as much maybe as previous generations who would just be like, I'm gonna fuck it out because, you know, I want to stay in this career.
Yeah.
And like a lot of employers, and I've had this discussion recently with people on LinkedIn and just in general with friends and stuff, is like when you're really clear on your value and like the exchange you're getting from your employer, like you can much more easily make that decision to like leave or job hop, if that makes sense. Because like people are starting to realize it's not just the employer's giving me a job and I should be grateful. It's like, I'm also, an asset to this company. They need me as well. So if they can't, facilitate my needs, whether that's salary, benefits, whatever, then I'll just have to go and just find someone who will. And you're never going to be able to outwork changing a job every couple of years with, in-house performance bonuses or, commission or just, salary increases. Like, it's just never going to happen. So I think once you're aware of that, it makes the decision a lot easier, maybe.
So in terms of the relationship between the company and the employee, there are some people who might say, especially when you're at a junior level, you're quite easily replaceable. So there should be gratitude coming from the employee in that way, because as much as you're an asset, you're a very disposable asset that can be easily replaced. Do you have anything to say about that as well?
It's definitely harder when you're junior, right? And you're trying to amass experience and, make your way in your working world. But I just think like try to get as much out of it as you can. And sometimes like what you get out of a job is not always like monetary, right? It could be experience, it could be opportunities to do things that you didn't necessarily think you could do or things that you think could help you progress. And you just try and extract as much as you can out of those jobs. And if you need to move on prematurely, then you need to move on. But your employer is going to have the exact same attitude, right? They want to get the maximum value out of you as an employee.
For sure.
So you should try and, do that as much as you can. And the balance is always going to be off, right? It's always going to be skewed in the employer's favor. But when you're really clear on what you offer and your skills, you can be more confident, I think, in like how you approach these kind of situations. But like you said, it's not always easy when you're like, okay, I'm trying to get my foot in the door. I don't want to, step on too many toes. So I completely understand that for sure.
I think that what you said about the value exchange isn't only monetary. I really agree with that, because the company really is getting your time and your effort and your sanity or whatever in some cases. But I think there's a lot of people who might say, okay, well, I'm earning money at the end of the day, so it is what it is. And obviously there's perks, like you might get a gym membership or a discounted whatever. But I agree with you. You can learn a lot. So you have a right to ask questions to learn. You have a right to demand better from your manager or whatever, to say, okay, I'm here to learn. So I've got this question, that question, the next question. I want to progress in this sort of direction. Just feel empowered to do that. Also networking. The wider you can grow your network, that's often how jobs are given and everything like that, moving up. There's a really good article. We can link it afterwards, that I was reading. I think it was on Farnham Street. And he was talking about how to find your next job. And he also really highly recommended, when you're starting out, as long as you can afford to take the job which grows your network the most, because you never know where that's going to lead you. So there's something there. I don't know. I haven't done it, so I can't say.
That affording part is big.
It's big. It's huge. Yeah. It's huge. I mean, you need to have a certain amount of, I suppose, privilege or luxury to be able to make a decision purely based on network. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, cash kind of is king. Yeah. And also, you wouldn't work if you didn't need money. Yeah, for sure. We've spoken about that before. And I think, like we've discussed, like Gen Z are also very tied to their work in terms of like making sure they're passionate about it and it's something that they think is important, that they care. And I think there's a stat here, 73% of Gen Z are not afraid to take a pay cut to pursue more fulfilling careers. So like, if it's aligning with your goals outside of just what the monetary kind of aspect, then definitely consider it more. And I think more and more people are kind of taking that attitude, like, yeah, it might not be as much money as this, but I'm not going to be, in the 9-to-5 slog or have to work with people I not necessarily like or in hostile environments. And it's something I actually like and will benefit from. And you're always going to do better in those environments than, the ones that you don't like. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, in terms of finding a job that fulfills you more, I feel like I can definitely speak to that. And it's just, when you're doing day in, day out, what's more aligned with, call it whatever, your personality, your spirit, what you want to get out of your life. I feel like you just move. It's early days for me, and I can only speak about my experience, but you kind of just move a little bit smoother through every day, thinking, okay, yeah, I can do this. I want to do this, that kind of thing. It's not, I feel like there's this utopic idea that, if you love your job, then you're never going to work a day in your life. Yeah, I don't really subscribe to that, but having a job that you like definitely helps.
Yeah, for sure.
or that it's fulfilling.
Was it kind of in the back of your mind when you were kind of between jobs thinking about like the next step and like what was important to you when you were looking? If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, when I came out of uni, I knew that I wanted to do some kind of design just because that's where my interest was. We've spoken about that. I mean, we've got a whole episode, the design episode.
Go watch that.
But I knew that I wanted to do some kind of design, but I also needed a job.
Yeah.
So I'd had an internship at this company before, and I really got on with the team. So I went into that job, and I was constantly looking for opportunities to design or have design adjacent jobs, which I got every now and again, but not as frequently as I wanted to. And the day in, day out of the job I eventually learned it wasn't necessarily something that I wanted to do. So, but in that sense, it was useful because knowing what you want to do is also knowing what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Right. So you can pivot in that way. So I think there's a merit almost to having a job. If you're in a job that you don't like, cool, that you know that you don't like that one. And you might know which way you want to pivot to a little bit more so.
Yeah. It's all experience, isn't it? Like,
exactly.
Just being exposed to all those different kinds of places to work. And I think that's something that more people could probably be open to, is like, don't just shut off things that are not an absolute perfect fit. And when I was younger, I kind of fell into this trap as well, where like, I'm only going to apply to things where I'm an absolute shoo-in. Like this is my 100% dream job. And they don't really come around that often. You know, if you look at the jobs that actually completely 100% align with what you want to do, there's probably not that many. Yeah. Because everybody's so different. But 100%. If you kind of broaden your horizons a little bit and say, okay, maybe I fit 60% or even 50% of this job description, and it's something I could feasibly do, just apply, because you never know. And you can kind of shape the role once you're in the organization much easier than, you know, just disqualifying every single job that's not 100%, you know, your style or what fit or whatever.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. I think every year on Twitter, the phrase does the rounds. It's apply to the job because they're going to train you anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Or at least they should. So as you said, even if you only have 50% of the job requirements, you should still apply to it because you might get it. And to your point, you might carve out your own role, which also makes you more of an asset and less easy to replace.
For sure.
If it's a very generic job role that anyone can go into, if you make that your own and you bring something which, I'm not saying no one else can, but if you bring something which is quite unique to you, then you're more of an asset. And then you've got more leverage to do whatever, ask for better learning, ask for more pay, or ask for more opportunities.
I think people would be surprised, like the amount of concessions that employers are willing to make for like the right candidate. One person with a good attitude, ready to just, you know, be a self-starter and just get on and crack on. Yeah, I think that's really important. We've got to talk about 9-to-5 life and Gen Z.
Yes.
How do you think our general attitude is to the traditional working kind of mindset?
I think when there's negativity surrounding the 9-to-5, it's often people who on the face of it have a 9-to-5, but really it's a 7-to-7 or something like that. Which I don't know. I know there's going to be like disagreements with this. I have like experienced that as well. And I think there is some merit to just, you know what, putting your head down and slogging it out. And just because you know you can do that if it comes down to it. Doing it constantly, probably, well, it isn't healthy, but knowing that you can do that and knowing that you've got more in the tank, I know, I find it quite empowering. However, I was also acutely aware that I was only being paid for a 9-to-5. So the rest of it's free work, essentially. So I don't know. I am a little bit on the side of if you are working more hours than the 9-to-5, which I think is what a lot of Gen Z are doing, you're not working that 7-hour day with an hour lunch. If you're working more than that and you feel like you're giving more than you're getting paid, then what else can you pull out of that job which isn't just monetary?
Yeah, exactly.
You really need to try and you're not going to completely balance the scales, as you were saying, but you really need to try your hardest to get whatever it is that you can. And also, when I was walking into this job, I got a bit of advice from, I think it was someone on Discord who said, no matter what, the company always gets more than what the employee gets. So don't feel bad for Josh's. The company always gets more. So don't feel bad for, I don't know, taking an extra 15 minutes at lunch or like putting your boundaries in place, or don't feel bad for all these things, because I think companies, sorry, it's a bit of a monologue. I think companies are very good at making you feel guilty for doing that, but don't. The company's always getting more, right? Always. That's my spiel.
Nice.
But I think in terms of the 9 to 5 in general, Gen Z can get a bad rep for like not wanting to work that hard or whatever it might be. I just think it's a different context. I know that's what I always say. It's just a different context to the people who are saying, "Oh, you're all snowflakes. You're all no one wants to work anymore."
I think there's so many like mixed factors in the kind of working hours and attitudes to work. On the face of it, I think you should really try to stick to your contracted hours as much as possible. And that's what you're getting paid for. That's what you're being contracted to do. But I completely understand, there's going to be ebbs and flows everywhere, but you've got to, there's as much give as there is take, right? So it's like, you might have to work a few extra hours to get some things across the line. Hopefully you enjoy it, you like it, you're passionate about your work and it's not too much of an issue, but make sure you get that time back and you're balancing, right? Because too often people just kind of fall into the kind of rhythm of, nobody's leaving at 5:30, nobody's leaving at 5. So I feel bad for leaving at 5:30, but you shouldn't. Yeah. It's really what your expectations are, have been set from the beginning. And if you have done that and you've made it clear, then you shouldn't feel bad about, doing that. And I think another thing that really plays into it is kind of like how we view careers as well, because a lot of people are using, those extra hours they put in, those late nights to kind of earn that kind of social capital to get promoted or develop in their career. But because Gen Z are much, less invested in one singular company and more likely to job hop, that's not going to earn them the real kind of like brownie points that they probably think it will. Do you know what I mean? Like, that very easily employers will forget that you've worked those long hours and just say, well, that's what's expected, right?
Yeah,
and it's not an extra effort if it's the norm. So it's as much about the culture in the company and your predisposition to wherever you want to go as it is about the actual hours, I think.
That's another thing. The culture of the company is really important. Is that a culture? Is this the kind of working environment you want to have? Not even just at the company, but in general, is this the kind of way that you want to work? What do you think? You kind of touched on it a little bit there. What do you think of signaling in a company? I.e. the whole, I'm obviously working really hard because I'm at my computer at 8 p.m. when I should have finished 3 hours ago, and I logged on at 6, and you all saw that I logged on at 6 because I was on Teams doing whatever.
Yeah, it's a big issue, and it can be quite insidious as well, where it's kind of like, your manager's messaging you a little bit later, and maybe they're WhatsApping you. Don't ever get your boss on WhatsApp, please, guys. No, don't do it. It never works. But, it can kind of creep up on you, and suddenly it's just become the norm, like we were talking about. But I definitely think, like, depending on the environment and where you are, it is definitely a game, particularly in like office-based kind of jobs where like you need to show that you're doing things, even if you aren't, unfortunately. And like, I think Gen Z are kind of over it in that respect. Like they're more aware, like, okay, this is just like posturing and it's not really real work and all of that. And they're but maybe a little bit more like inclined to like move away from that and just be like, I'm not going to do it because I know it's not going to benefit me. But yeah, in some jobs, it's just so ingrained in the culture, it's hard to like even get away from, where it's like, oh, I noticed you weren't, at your desk or online on Slack at this time, and like, the pocket watches and whatnot. But,
yeah. It's really hard, especially when you need to track your, like, what you're doing at this time or whatever.
Because unfortunately in some, not even in some, I'd even go as far to say in a lot of jobs, like, it's not necessarily the work product you produce or like how well you do in that job. It's really just about who likes you.
Yeah.
Especially in these corporate environments. And like, it's about building rapport with people in management. And like, it even reminds me of like when I used to go to uni and like, I used to go to like, I don't know, maybe like 60, 70% of lectures. But because I always used to make sure that I was around when the lecturers were around and, having conversations with them and not just like running off as soon as the lecture's finished, they tended to remember me a lot more than some of the other people in my year, right? Because they were like, oh yeah, we always see Jaden around at the studio or after lectures, he's asking questions and stuff. So it's as much about like appearances as it is about what you actually do. And I probably got away with going to a lot less lectures than other people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that respect. So it's kind of the game you have to play. And I'm not saying it's right, but that's just how some people get ahead in certain jobs.
I totally agree with you. I think I agree. It's a game. You need to play the game because you didn't make the rules, but that doesn't matter. You're in it anyway. And signaling, I think it's almost essential in some ways. Again, showing that you're working, showing that you're doing something with your time. But it's not necessarily, I think it's something that we've almost slipped into. Funny enough, there's a really good book that I've got in my bag. I could have done a Jimmy Fallon, like here it is. Do you know the author Cal Newport?
I've heard the name, yeah.
So he's got like a cult classic called Deep Work, and he's recently released a book called Slow Productivity. And essentially he goes through how after the pandemic, everyone moved to remote working, and that just made everyone a lot less productive because you just got Zoom calls all the time. And at my old company, there were a few times where it's like you get to 1 o'clock and it's like, I haven't been able to do any work because I've just had meetings all morning, and now I can do some work. And then someone tries to put in a 15-minute whatever in the afternoon, and you go, nothing moves along. So the haphazard approach to working, which we just naturally found ourselves in after the pandemic, it caters to everyone feeling busy, everyone having to do busy work as in signaling, but also, I don't know, the quality of work. The argument in the book is that the quality of work goes down.
Yeah.
As a result, because he's all about, deep work, like spend 5 hours just trudging through the same thing, which is difficult. But I don't know, even though signaling is essential, I don't know whether it's very conducive to really high quality work.
Yeah. A lot of people start questioning, like bullshit jobs, but how much of their like actual job is like things that are productive and are making a difference and having an impact. What do you think about the work that you do? Like, do you think like how much of it is bullshit and how much of it is like, okay, I'm actually doing something that's like driving a difference or at least having an impact in some way?
Well, the work that I'm doing is it's just media and it's graphic designer, right? So it's just communication. It's absolutely not essential. But most jobs aren't. That's one of the central points of bullshit jobs.
Yeah.
He says, it was so funny. I was reading it. Josh recommended it to me. And at the very start, he's like, technology is meant to remove the human need to work. Instead, it's created a whole new load of jobs called bullshit jobs. Yeah. And then he just said, there in black and white, my job role. And I was like, that is hilarious.
Called you out your name.
Literally called me out. But then he goes into a story about a guy who didn't work. He just signaled for like a year and no one clocked because his work was that pointless.
I actually rate that.
Do you know what I mean?
I actually rate that highly.
If you can, then do it. You know what I mean? If the only thing that you're getting monitored on is your ability to just show up, but not actually do anything, it's like quiet quitting. Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
Right? That's something that Gen Z is doing a lot at the minute now. And I don't hate it. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, not for real.
We'll get into that in a second. But in terms of gravy, someone just didn't work for a year and still got paid until they were like, what have you done? It's just like, nothing. I've logged on and that's it. I don't know. I suppose you have to work, but then I also don't dream of labor. Like, I'm not there yet. I haven't figured it out in my head yet. But we've kind of touched on it a little bit. And in terms of this whole, like, I don't know, not dreaming of labor, but there's so many bullshit jobs around. Outside of your salary, and we've spoken about networking and learning, what other benefits do you think people can pull out of a job? What other things do you think people can pull out?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. I mean, some people really derive a sense of purpose out of their work. Again, like you said, for me personally, there's not a great deal of purpose in the work that I do, particularly with the companies that I work with, but they tend to pay the best.
Right. Okay.
I'm gonna be real with you.
Yeah,
but no, definitely like a sense of purpose. Some people can, and some people, their job is really tied to their identity. Like they're proud to do what they do. And they feel like they're making a difference. And those things are becoming more and more important, I think, especially for younger people, rather than, like, I'm just gonna work in middle management and work my way up and just slog and retire, and then I'll finally have my freedom. Where Gen Z are like, I want to do something that I care about, and I want to have that balance so I can actually do the things that I want to do now and not have to defer them to when I'm retired or have more resources and more money. Because you only got one life, man.
You've only got one life, exactly. I'm interested to hear what you think about this. It's just something that I just thought about now. So Gen Z, there's this whole attitude about not willing to work, moving jobs all the time. They want to find their passion in their job or whatever. I think it's never been harder to like buy a house, for example, right? Something like, back in like 50, 60 years ago, the average house price was double the average wage or something like that. Now it's like 40 times, right? It's just so far removed. So if Gen Z aren't working for money because like if you can work for money if you want to, and obviously you do to like live and stuff, but not to move out, not to hit these general life goals which previous generations might have had. We're looking for other value systems to place with our to our jobs. So whether that be have it be more fulfilling, have opportunities to travel, the network, the people that work there, whatever it might be, there's just different value systems aside from money. Working theory, but what do you think?
I think those things are definitely important. I don't know how much people really place on those things outside of money. I mean you're right. Like, your purchasing power is probably so depleted now that you can't do those same things that previous generations could do. So maybe you're just looking at alternative ways, to make the best out of what you've got, the hand that you've been dealt. And hopefully it turns out a bit better in the future. But I don't know. I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's a lot of nihilism towards the idea of
like, what's the point?
House, 2.5 kids, that whole dream. So
and maybe that's why people aren't so attached to that the idea of like a traditional career anymore, right? Because they're like, the benefits that I would actually get from that, they're non-existent now.
Exactly.
Like, I might have to do the hard hours and take on more responsibilities and, work really hard in this business. But I know at the end of it, I'm getting my proper remuneration and I'm going to get the benefit. But now it's like, I do all of that stuff and I still can't afford to do the things that I want to do and that previous people could do.
Exactly.
So what's the point of even, trying?
Yeah.
You might as well just do something you like at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that can also link into the culture and the network that you've got in the company, because if you're seeing someone who's been at the company for, let's say, 10 years and they're not in a position which you necessarily want to be in 10 years, whether it be in whatever way, it doesn't need to be financially, but socially or whatever it is, then it's kind of like, well, this is my trajectory and that's not necessarily where I want to be. And it could be monetary. If it's like they're not earning as much as I'd want to be earning after 10 years staying at the same place or whatever it might be, then let me try and find a different way to eke value out of this place, because it's not going to be money.
Sometimes that can be the trap though, I think, because you look at, those people that are a bit more senior in your companies, especially in the corporate workplace, and you're like, it's aspirational, right? Okay, this guy's VP, senior director, whatever, and he's got all of these things, but you're not realizing that the context that you're in now, you're not going to be allowed those same things.
Yeah.
But you're still going to aspire to what you see above you, right? Yeah. And then now you're working towards something which is completely unattainable, but the only example you've got is trying to reinforce that you can do it. So you kind of like keep chasing the carrot, but you're never actually going to reach it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think that, the jobs that carry an immediate benefit, basically those in the service industry, teachers, doctors, nurses, this kind of thing, do you think that they get, I mean, the obvious answer is no, but do you think they get remunerated correctly? Also, do you think that these are viable jobs for Gen Z to aspire to, given the context that we're in?
Yeah.
My whole thing for ages, I wanted to be a teacher. I loved all of that.
Yeah, I wanted to be a dentist at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I went to the dentist the other day. My wallet didn't like it. So if you want to talk about money,
big bang.
Yeah.
But I think, obviously those industries are criminally underpaid and undervalued. And when I think about where I would encourage people from my generation to do them, I mean, those jobs are always going to be in demand, but what we're seeing increasingly is like, they're getting treated so badly, you know what I mean? We see doctors go on strike all the time, train drivers, nurses. And I wouldn't encourage people to go into that if they have goals outside of, the benefit to society and the kind of catharsis that making a difference might bring to them. Which is really sad because, those used to be really viable careers that maybe people would really aspire to. Like I said, when I was younger, I wanted to be a dentist, and then I saw how much work was involved in terms of study and work experience and like all the work that you're going to have to do, placements and etc. And really weighed it up with, my other options. And I ultimately decided not to pursue it. But, that's a reality for so many people. And it's really sad that, the things that maybe were much more valuable for previous generations now have just been eroded to the point where, again, it feels like it's just not worth it from an investment, especially when you're talking about your career, right? Because you could get pretty far in, those careers and you're quite entrenched. So you can't really go back on being a doctor. I mean, you can go to something else, but you've invested so much money and time and effort into these things, and to be treated the way that these people are treated is just really unfair, man.
I suppose the other side of that is that in another way, there's never been a better time to be a young person in terms of jobs, because there's so many jobs out there.
Sure.
You know, there's a YouTuber just being our doctor. It's called Ali Abdal, and he's massively a productivity guy.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I consume his content.
He used to be a doctor, right?
He used to be a doctor, but now he's like a YouTuber.
Yeah.
But he started off on YouTube, I think, telling people at uni that this is the best way to study. I go to Cambridge. I'm a doctor. Listen to me, kind of thing. And now I think he released a book recently. He's on various podcasts. He's got his own podcast. He's got his own business going. So in that way, you know, in previous generations, if you train to be a doctor, you're going to be a doctor. If you train to be a lawyer, you're going to be a lawyer. The ability to pivot wasn't really there.
Yeah.
Whereas now it is. You can almost create your own job. The barrier to entry is really low, but the barrier to success is quite high, I'd say. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But new jobs are being created every day, and it's not about technology creating new jobs. It's I've got this particular interest. You know, you never had this amount of access to an audience, put it that way. So there's a bit of a tension there.
I definitely think that people are starting to understand that, you know, your career doesn't have to be super linear, as much as maybe in previous generations where it's like, right, I'm out of uni or I'm straight out of school, I'm in this company, and now I'm here for the next 15, 20, 25 years, and I'm just going to, you know, just do it, get my head down and get to a point where I can, you know, be comfortable. And now people are like, if I really want to make the most out of my career, doing that is not going to be very productive, and it's probably not as effective as it was in the past. And you've got to kind of jump around and find different pockets. And even just thinking about, you know, things that you want to do. We see so many people that just use the skills from one job and they do very well in other jobs, right? And maybe that attitude is being more encouraged now, and people are looking for skills more than qualifications or experience, if that makes sense. I'm like, that is going to be a really big benefit for Gen Z, I think, when it comes to finding jobs. Like they're much more able to kind of utilize their skill set and just fit it into what they want to do, rather than like, I've only done this, I've only got experience in this is all I can do.
Yeah. I think there is something to be said for that, gaining experience over qualifications. But you can do that. You know, there might be someone listening at uni who's like, well, I'm already working towards a qualification, so what am I meant to do now? It's not always going to be like this, but my experience at uni, I had a lot of free time. Part of that is that I think you said you went to 70% of lectures. I think I went to about 3. I was not at uni at all. But I had a lot of free time, and that's where I first started. That's where I first like torrented Photoshop and started doing that whole bit. So I think in university is quite a unique, well, again, this is completely my experience, but university was quite a unique place where you meet a bunch of different people. So the networking, you can do that. But you've got experts in tons of different fields. At my uni, I don't know if this is the same for all of them. I could just walk in. I didn't do physics, but I could just walk into a physics lecture if I wanted to. I didn't tell anyone, but if I just saw, on the, like, there wasn't a register. It wasn't why are you here? And I'm not saying you need to go to that extreme, but there are a lot of resources, the library, whatever it might be, where you can, and time, you know, time is a pretty good resource at uni, where admittedly, you know, you've got your student loan. So depending on your financial situation as well, you might be working. I was in a position where I didn't need to. I was a little bit, but I didn't need to. So I had more time again. But just finding these places, if you're already working towards a qualification, that doesn't mean that that's the be all end all. Similarly, if I look back, maybe I would have just gone straight into, I don't know, an apprenticeship or something, because then you got no debt and you're just learning skills straight off the bat. My point of all of that is, I suppose it's like, do what you can with what you got and try to gain that experience, because again, it's like what you can do in a lot of cases, I suppose. And what we were saying earlier, in the job description, if you can do 50% of that, apply.
Yeah, do it, man.
Apply. Just see what happens, because you never know. And it kind of, I will stop talking in a second, but it kind of feeds off to the idea of what's professional versus what's not.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of professional jobs is your idea of banker, investment banker, lawyer, or what, like teacher even, or whatever else. Whereas there's a lot of what older generations might deem unprofessional occupations, which are still earning a lot of money. There's a bunch of people in the States who are selling tables at restaurants and earning like 70k off it.
Like reservations.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I'll just reserve way into the future at really bougie restaurants.
Yeah.
And we'll sell them for people who try to reserve too close to the time.
Yeah.
There was another group of people who put on a fake restaurant, but made like the barrier to entry super, super high. So a bunch of people thought they were going to this really prestigious, really kind of new, edgy.
The Shed?
It might have been. I don't know.
The Vice article with Uber. I'm not sure.
Oh, it might have been.
Yeah,
I remember seeing it. I think it was on TikTok or something.
Yeah.
But they just put on a fake restaurant and earn a ton of money from it. And the food was kind of mediocre. But again, it's the whole thing. Have you heard about the experiment with the 2 wine bottles? Both of them were exactly the same, but one wine bottle, it was like, this is £50 bottle of wine, this is a £5 bottle of wine. And everyone said that the £50 bottle of wine tastes better.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a huge tangent. But the idea is that unprofessional jobs, there's tons of them, but you can still earn quite a bit of coin doing those.
Yeah, for sure. I think maybe Gen Z gets a bit of a flack in that respect where, you know, they might see us as a bit less professional. And like you said, all of these kind of new and emerging jobs wouldn't necessarily be strictly defined as like professional, right? And maybe there's a little bit of jealousy in the fact that, you know, there's jobs that we can do and make a lot of money from that aren't strictly professional, and we're carving out ways to make money that maybe weren't available to previous generations. But you know, I think those traditions, they're important in some respects, and I think, like, you know, you have to have an air of professionalism about you when you want to progress in the working world, whether that's in a job that's strictly professional or not. And those principles can go a long way, but like, don't stick to them so ardently that, like, you know, you kind of get in the weeds of it and you're trying to act professional, and it's a detriment to, you know, going forward, because, you know, you don't always have to be prim and proper to, you know, progress in the working world. And some people probably get discouraged because they're like, oh, I'm not professional enough. But that's just the, you know, a marker of somebody. It's not really, you know, something that you should define yourself by. Do you know what I mean? It's just a job at the end of the day.
Well, let's go into that. Like, you need to have a bit of an air of professionalism about you.
Yeah.
How do you define professional, especially when it comes to your appearance? Because if you Google unprofessional haircuts,
yeah, it's true.
I'm telling you,
it's true. I think professionalism is just about the way that you conduct yourself. It's not about how you look or, you know, a certain way, but it's just about, you know, going about your business or your work in a way where, you know, you respect the work that you're doing, and you try and do it to the best of your ability, and you treat people with the same respect that you would want in a workplace. It's not about, you know, coming to work in a suit every day or turning up like super early and working really hard until the end. That doesn't make you a professional. Do you know what I mean? It's just about the attitude that you come with, I think, when you want to work. And that can manifest in so many different ways. You know, you can be a professional without, you know, having a super short, sharp haircut, or, you know, whatever people say makes you professional. I think those are just ways for people to kind of enforce how they think work should be on other people.
So I agree to an extent, because this might just be me, but if I don't know, go like wake up, go and have a shower, and put on, like, actually get dressed into something which I've deemed is, like, I don't know, okay to dress in or whatever. Doesn't matter what it is. And then I go out to wherever it is I'm going to work, sit down, open a laptop and work. I'm always way more productive than if I wake up and just open my laptop and go for it. So I agree with you in terms of professional appearance shouldn't be a cut and dry thing. There's a whole spectrum of whatever that is. And I think it's very particular to the individual. But I also do think that it's important to generate higher quality work. I think there is something to be said for showing up and actually meaning to do it. And you can take it seriously from your bedroom, but just be honest with yourself. Like, is this the best environment for me to be doing good work?
I think sometimes this might be a hot take, but sometimes Gen Z get a little bit cheeky with it.
And
and they feel like, you know, like, I'm a professional. I got a business, bro, and I'm doing this and that, but they're not following the proper business principles. Like, register your company, guys. Please register your company. Do your accounts, because they'll read you for filth on Company's House, bro. They'll just air you out. So there is like a, you know, there's a level of, you know, do things properly. I think that's what comes into professionalism. You know what I mean? Like, you can be a professional and you can be cool and you can be counterculture or whatever you want to be, but do things in the right order and do things properly. And that doesn't make you less cool if you're a professional. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doesn't make your brand or your business or your job less cool if you have to do things properly, because you should.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
For example, if you use AI to replicate a deceased rapper, maybe ask the estate of said rapper before you do it. Get your shit in order.
Like, for real.
Yeah. Also, pay your invoices on time.
Yes, pay people.
Pay people. Yeah. If you've got a business, pay people on time. And because otherwise, these people have been listening to Dead or Alive and they know from Jaden's experience that's one of the biggest red flags, and you won't have a workforce to exploit. I agree with you. I think professionalism is just being ready to take the job seriously, right? Especially if you've got your own gig or if you're freelancing or whatever, especially then. And I've learned this. I mean, I've had Josh call me out for this. It's just like, take yourself seriously. I mean, I was just at uni and I was kind of like,
and that might manifest in, having a nice haircut for you.
It could be.
Dressing nicely and, showing up to work however you want to show up. That might be for you, but that's not the hard and fast rule for everybody, right? Just take your job seriously, respect people you work with, and respect the work that you're doing, and you're a professional.
Yeah. And that's it. And then on the flip side of it, if you're a company, saying that people can't come in with certain haircuts, then just have a look at yourself, right? Because that is at best that's outrageous.
Yeah,
right.
I think this brings up another cool point around job shaming, because there's like two sides of it, right? There's like the people that have a 9-to-5 that are like, oh, I could never work for myself, I could never do I don't know where my next money's coming from. And then there's the entrepreneurs who probably are maybe a little bit louder and are just like, I can never be a wagey working a 9-to-5. So how do you feel about people like making fun of the jobs that people have, or maybe even don't have if they're unemployed or looking for work?
I think I kind of see it as a similar vibe to if you're at a gym and you see someone who's like got a different body to you and you're like, oh, what are they doing in the gym? Like everyone's trying to do what they can do. Everyone's trying to, I think if you come at it from everyone's trying their best, that may not be true, but if you come at it from that, then there's a lot more empathy going around. I actually had an experience of this fairly recently. Like a friend of a friend, I was talking to them, they live near me, and I was suggesting, they're a bit younger, and they're like, I can't find work. And I said, oh, well, why don't you work? You can work at the pub that I used to work at. I'm sure they're taking people and it's a great environment and all this sort of stuff. And they were kind of like, yeah, maybe, but kind of turning their nose up at it. And I was like, well, fine if you've got work, but turning your nose up at someone else's job is like, you got to start somewhere, man. You know what I mean?
For sure.
I understand. Look, if you don't want to work at a pub or be a waiter or anything like that, fine. But sometimes you got to start somewhere to get somewhere.
Especially in this market.
In fact, that's the worst job I had. Just rewind really quickly. There is an agency that when I was maybe 16, everyone was just working for, and it's the kind of place where you go in really generic black trousers, white shirt. And you're like waiter for events or something, and you don't know anyone that you're working with. So one time I was working at the West Ham Stadium for a Foo Fighters gig. Another time I was working at, I can't remember what it's called, big famous building in London for like a bougie event. It's the worst thing ever because they would say, okay, we'll buy your journey home, we'll pay for your Uber home if you're leaving later than 12:30 or something like that. It's like, cool. So they'd let you go at like 12:25.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we're not paying for your journey home. But because all of these events were in West and I live in Southeast, my journey home would be the same amount that I got paid.
Oh.
Because it would be an Uber. So
that's rough.
I'm not earning any money. So I stopped after a few events.
Yeah, that's
anyway,
rough.
That's my worst. That's my worst one. I can't remember how I got to that. So I probably went off on a tangent.
No, I think we were talking about job shaming, and I think you should it's not, both sides are not for everyone, right? Like, some people, they really can't work in a 9-to-5 job. It's not for them, and they just would rather do much better for themselves. And then other people, they need that structure, and it makes them less anxious and feel more secure if they have that job. And that, there's both sides of it. We need small businesses and we need employees, right?
Yeah,
so
100%.
No job is beneath anybody. And I feel like, especially in this market, you really got to be open to more than, whatever you want to do just specifically, because it's rough out here.
Well, have you seen the influencer who's like my day is in a 9-to-5 job, and he gets cooked on Twitter because everyone's like, "This is not living. How can he live like this?"
Is this like the middle-aged American guy?
Yeah. I can't remember. But then a lot of people
Hub's
are saying,
Life, I think his name is.
I'm not even sure.
Yeah,
I just see it on Twitter, him getting cooked. But then on the alternative side, like if that's not for you, it's not for you, right? But I think a lot of the people, I'm not sure, but I think a lot of the people who are cooking him on Twitter are the people who are saying, "Oh, I'm gonna be the next whatever Virgil."
Yeah, next Kanye West.
And it's not necessarily going at the minute, but you'll look down on someone who's got, some people just value stability more.
Yeah.
So, them doing a 9-to-5, and I think it's quite good how, if you look at the term influencer, and if this person is an influencer, then they're usually influencers are like one of, like, not very many, they're very unique people. But if this is an influencer of your more bog standard person, then I think that's a good thing.
People can relate, right?
Exactly.
And you know what is interesting? Because I saw a lot of people that were not rightfully, but they were cooking him about the videos. But there were some people that, that were like, you know what? I'm fine with this. Like, this seems like a good life to me. Like, I'm content with this. And it was interesting to see both sides of the argument. And some people that were like, I absolutely couldn't do this. And other people were like, you know what? This doesn't seem that bad. He's got his family. He's got his work. It's close by. Do you know what I mean? So I find it interesting, the different sides that they're saying. And, I think, especially with Gen Z, the narrative around owning your own business is pushed a lot. And some people are like, it's the only way you can be free and do what you want, but we can't all be business owners at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? We're going to need employees. And also, like, I've had this conversation a lot with like friends and stuff, and having owned a business, like, it's not what it's cracked up to be. Like, people glamorize the owning part of a business. And like I said before, you got to have that, that business hygiene. Make sure you've got your accounts in order, you're doing your taxes, invoicing, paying people on time. It's like all encompassing. It's so much work outside of just whatever you want to do. Like, it's so much more than just selling t-shirts or, selling sprinkle cake off your sofa. Do you know what I mean? It's much more than that. And people don't give you, they don't give you all of the terms and conditions when you run a business. And if you want to do a 9-to-5 and you don't want to deal with all of that stuff, do it, man. But I think that idea gets pushed a lot, and it's like, it can be harmful to people because they're like, oh yeah, I could be a business owner, not really realizing what goes into it.
Yeah, as you say, because it gets glamorized. And the opposite of it is that a 9-to-5 kind of gets criticized or cooked a lot.
Exactly.
But you wake up, might go to the gym, have a walk, do whatever you want, 9-to-5, back home, 2.5 kids.
If it works for you, it works for you.
Yeah, exactly. I think to each their own.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
For sure. Oh, should we talk about LinkedIn?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, just after having spoken to Toby, and she's just like talking about LinkedIn, and she's like, I hate it.
How do you feel about it?
Don't like it, but you got to do it.
Necessary evil.
Necessary evil, 100%. It's the opposite of something like Instagram, but not because of it's the opposite in a lot of different ways. But the way that I'm talking about is, on Instagram, I could follow someone that I know from school or something and wouldn't expect them to like follow me back, right? Because there's a bit of like a thing about, have you got more followers than you're following, and that whole bit, right? That's what I mean. But whatever it is, right? But then you've got on LinkedIn, I'm getting requests from people that I've met like once, right? And it's like a mutual thing, because once you get to that 500 plus connections, that's what gets glamorized. It's a different metric. Anyway, in answer to your question, I hate it because, and to Toby's point, it's like, I was down bad when I was 3 years old, and I've been struggling for the past 52 years and 7 days, and now finally this whole thing, and it's all about me. A lot of the time, it's very rare that you kind of give shout outs to other people unless that is for you. But necessary evil. You grow your network.
I think so too. I feel like there's a lot of, you've got to like sift through all of those like virtue signaling and all about me and employment story posts to like get to the real good stuff on there. And it's mainly about like you said, the connections that you find with other people and using it as a networking tool. But I've got a lot of work through, LinkedIn, or keeping in touch with people from LinkedIn, and they contact me. So like, it's definitely something to consider if you want a job. And I mean, it's very easy to apply for jobs on there. Maybe you won't be the most successful directly through LinkedIn because, like I said, the market right now is just immense. But yeah, I think it's a necessary evil. Do you think that it kind of exemplifies the like toxic aspects of working culture? I mean, there's a lot of discussions on there about, you know, pay. Quite often discussions around disclosing salaries on job descriptions comes up, and a whole plethora of issues that there are with employment. Do you think that it actually helps, or do you think that it's just exacerbating those problems?
Yeah, I think, I don't know whether it's helping or exacerbating or just like not really doing it. It's just a lot of noise.
Yeah, it is a lot of noise.
It's a lot of noise. I think LinkedIn, in the same way that employees can signal at work, LinkedIn is where the companies signal to everyone else.
Yeah. I always see like the goody two shoes of the companies are the ones that post on LinkedIn a lot. Like they want their extra little achievements from.
But also, like again, fair enough. If your, you know, metric or success metric or whatever is I want to rise up at my company and be visible and do that whole bit, then fair. I think the only issue that I've got with things like that is when people don't admit that. You know, if you're going to be kind of like a soppy, you know, me, my company on LinkedIn, cool, but that is what you're doing, right? And that's fine. If you're going to do a 9 to 5, that's also fine, but don't say that you're going to be the next Steve Jobs, because it's kind of unlikely if you're not, because you're not, you know, you're not founding a company, which again is fine. You know, just it's not so much like stay in your lane. It's just stop posing like you're in a different one. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just be proud of where you're at.
For sure. I try to spend as little time on there as possible.
On LinkedIn?
Yeah.
I've got notifications off.
Yeah. It is cool to see who viewed your profile though.
Oh yeah, that's a premium feature though, no?
Peek. Oh, sometimes it tells you like it tells you like the organization they're from.
Right.
You can work out.
Okay.
You can work out, yeah.
Okay.
Or you see the little blurred photo and you're like, I know who this is.
Yeah. To be fair, I do like to see when friends or people that I used to work with or whatever, when they get promoted,
or that's always good to see.
When they've like moved somewhere else and like you might know that job's a better fit for them or something like that. It's really nice to see people like doing well.
Yeah.
And you can't fake like a new job. Or can you? No, you can't really. Not on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I think people big it up, but maybe not loud.
People big it up.
Outright lie, yeah.
But if you just take, you know, the bare bones of it, you know, it's like happy for you. And it's not necessarily something that you'd see on an Instagram or something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Long question here, but Israel is our question master. So on I Was Here in It, watch that.
Yeah, go watch that episode.
If you haven't watched it, like, subscribe, share it with everyone. We asked the question, what would life be like if we weren't defined by our labels? In that vein, what would life be like if we didn't need jobs? Number one. Or how would we talk about work if we couldn't say our title / role? That second bit, I've spoken about quite a lot, not necessarily in the podcast, but like just in general. I think in order to remove unconscious bias as much as we can or conscious bias as much as we can from the job world, from the working world, CVs, you shouldn't put which school you went to. You shouldn't put your name or these different things that your gender, your sex or anything like that, or your age. It should just be, here's my qualifications. This is why I'm good for this role. Here's what I've done in the past. Yeah. Here's my interests, maybe. Bit of a out there idea. It's a bit of a utopia, but that's what I think. If you removed all of those things and you'd remove a lot of those biases, and then you might get into a place where you've got some kind of meritocracy.
I mean, it's interesting, right? We've seen from people who do experiments like, okay, I'm going to post this exact same CV and I'm going to change the name to something a bit more foreign, a bit more unique. But all the experience, all the information is the same, and suddenly the more bog standard name gets, you know, so much more response.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely an issue, and I think it's a big part of why it's so hard to like apply for jobs in just a manual way.
Yeah,
because like you're always going to have to fight with, you know, ATS software scanning your CV and hiring managers that don't really know about the role who will just disqualify you. And there's so many barriers before you get in front of a person that can really sell yourself.
Yeah,
that it can be hard. So any way that we can reduce that, I think that's great. Like,
Yeah.
but it will take some work, and these attitudes are like so ingrained in working culture and hiring, especially. I think hiring is in an absolute state of disarray at the moment, especially. I can't stand recruiters at the moment. It's just so just like not sensitive and haven't got the brain like switched on for actually what's going on right now and how hard it is for people to find a job. Even with people with years and years of experience are really struggling right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's interesting, like what would it be like if I didn't need my job? Be pretty chill, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, how would I describe like what I do if I didn't? I don't know.
Try and describe what you do. I like this one. Try and describe what you do without using the words graphic or design.
Yeah. Probably say something like I push pixels.
You push
pushing P. Or
pushing P.
moving shapes around on the screen.
Clip that. Pushing P.
Yeah,
that's exactly. Oh,
yeah,
that's
I mean,
hilarious.
it sounds so unglamorous. Like graphic designer does sound like it's not as trendy now, but it did sound very trendy. Like, oh, I'm a graphic designer. I'm this guy.
Yeah.
But like now, it's like not got the same that it used to have. But yeah, I think that's probably what I'd say. What would you say?
Oh, it's not going to sound as cool now. I was going to say like visual communication or something like that.
Visual communicator.
But visual, like pushing P sounds.
Some people take it farther. Some people are like, I'm a story forger.
Can we stop? Can everyone please stop calling themselves storytellers?
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
What does that mean?
Do you know what I mean? This is not 7 o'clock on CBeebies, please.
Yeah.
Storytellers need to stop.
Mary Mookow, shut up.
Oh, it's like, well, obviously, you know what I mean? That's how people communicate. But everyone on LinkedIn is always a storyteller.
Yeah.
It's in terms of what you would do if you didn't need to work, though. Yeah. Again, we spoke about this before. I think people would just take, and this hasn't changed really. I think people would take a good amount of time off to just chill. But then eventually you need to do something. But because you're doing it for the love of doing it, or you're just testing a few different things. Childish Gambino, he's awoken recently, right? And Donald Glover was saying, a lot of people say that he's a jack of all trades, master of none. But he says, I just do what interests me at the time. And if it stops interesting me, I just drop it. And I quite like that. And I like that way of approaching things, whether it's conducive to good work or whatever, I'm not really sure, but he's seemed pretty successful. I think if I didn't need to work, it would be a case of you just try out a bunch of different things and then eventually you find a rabbit hole and you're just going to go down it and you're going to end up being an expert in that thing, but purely out of the love of doing it.
Yeah, do what you love, man.
Do what you love. But in this economy, also do what makes you money.
Yeah.
Basically.
Bag chase.
Chase the bag.
You got to chase the bag.
Chasing bags and pushing peas.
Pushing peas, mate.
That's what we're doing.
Oh. All right, should we wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up on that somber note.
We are just over halfway through season 1. Thank you everybody so much who's watched, like, subscribe. Please continue, comment. zedoralivepod, TikTok, YouTube Shorts.
Yeah.
Videos coming out fortnightly.
Yeah. The support's been really great, actually. I'll be just out seeing people that I know. I'm not like getting like people on the street be like, zedoralivepod. We're not there yet. But yeah, I'll just be out with like friends or whatever, and I say, oh yeah, this is a podcast. Like you should talk about this. Like I really like this bit, so it's good to see people interacting with it. But please continue to, as Jaden said, like, share, subscribe.
Share with everybody you know.
Definitely share, and also leave a rating on Spotify. I didn't realize you could do that, or wherever it is that you're listening to your podcast. Leave a rating. Let us know what you liked. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about in future.
Guests.
Through whatever means. Guests, everything like that. Because, you know, we're as Shane said, we're over halfway through this season. And we want to keep putting out the kind of things that you guys want to listen to or watch if you're on YouTube. So, yeah, thank you so much for the support.
Thanks so much, guys. Clap out.
Clap out.